And hi guys, welcome to this episode of The Dark Side TDS episode 8 already. Welcome Shadow Cats. At the time of recording, I'm gonna go to Polytechnic to give a talk. That's why I'm more dressed up today. Can you believe it? Like, it has been so many episodes and we're almost coming to the end. So it was a lot of exciting, a lot of adventure with my life, and this is a new part of my life that I think I haven't talked about, and I would really want to do this into season 2, but let me just try and give you the gist today. So as we have mentioned from episode 7, whereby Mango has decided to come in later and leave a lot earlier, I've decided to work in a international school. So I shall not name the school because of maybe legality issues. But if you are my student from the school, also don't mention the names because I just don't want to get you into trouble as well. So let's talk about the interview process. So because during COVID, I just wanted a day job because I still want to have my I still teach tuition, so I have my afternoons from 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 or 7 to 9. I still have some students, so a perfect job would be if I can go in the morning and earn some money, and if I look around, if you look at Starbucks or anywhere else, I think the hourly rate is only 10, 12, if you're very lucky, $15 an hour, So because I was teaching a lot, and then I chanced upon this random school, and then they're looking for part-timers. So I was like, oh, okay. And the rate was about 30 to 40 an hour. So I was like, oh, I think that's a lot better than most places, and if I can get in, then that gives me a very good resume, right? Because I have taught in the school. Because for Singapore government, you need to go through Ministry of Education. There's this degree or diploma or higher level of learning that you need to achieve before you can teach in local schools. Obviously, I can't do that, so I can only teach in an international school. I think that is a pretty good approach, right? So I went for that, I applied for it. So on top of that, I also applied for some other things because I was looking around, a little bit desperate, to be honest. And then I also applied for a lab technician. So both of them replied to me at the same time. So for the lab technician, right, I need to be there from 9 to 5 p.m. Also, that means I need to cut off some of my students. And then it was really funny because the interview process, there were 2 rounds of interview. So the first round was my education, my my job history. But the thing is, I've never been a lab tech officially, but I mean during my days where I did chemistry and bio, I did obviously some research lah. So that was my only relevant information. Oh, I also did a little time at the forensics department, so that was my only what's that called, experience. So the first round was totally okay, but the second round, right, there was even a stress test. They asked me to add values, numbers, in 30 minutes without a calculator, and they were observing me through the Skype. So that was super duper weird. And after that, they told me that okay, my stress test results fared pretty well, and then therefore we had a second round. So when I went for the second round, I was like, okay, so what do we talk in the second round? Because the first round I already told you everything. So it was negotiation of the pay. Because I'm a degree student from a local university which has a pretty high ranking, I think at least top 3 in Asia. Okay, sometimes at certain point of time it has been the first. So I think for a degree student, I was looking at, I think anything above 3,000 would be good, right? So the manager came and he was like, so let's just talk about the pay. And they said that, oh, you don't really have experience and blah blah blah. Then as in they were really beating around the bush, and I was like, can we just get to the point? Because they will just keep talking in circles and for about a good 20 minutes, and I see that it's not going anywhere. So I talk about, can you just go straight into the pay? So how much are you gonna pay? And then they were like, because the range was from 2005 to like 4,000, right? So as a degree student, I think maybe I was standing in between, maybe at least 3,000, 3,002 or something. They went up straight and said, oh, we can only afford 2005 right now because you have no experience and it's during COVID, so this is the only grant that we can get. I'm like, but I'm a degree student. They're like, yeah, but you have no experience. At that moment, I was like, should I pick up a job that pays so low, as in lower than what my education entitles, or should I just not go with it? But at the same time, I know that there was this part-time job that might potentially pay a lot higher, right, if you do the math. So I was like, I told them straight, I say respectfully, I have another offer and this is way too low. I don't want to waste your time, so you just give me your best price. And they raised up to like 2007 at most, and I was like, that is too low. I hope you find someone that matches your budget. All the best, bye. And that's the first time I offed a Zoom call. That was it, and I felt like a badass, but poor badass, okay, because I was still poor and looking for a job. But I think that wasn't the right way to do things. But I can understand that during that point of time during COVID, I think funds were very low and they can only get funds from the government. But hello, you are leading research for I shall not get into the details, but for a pioneer prevention of a certain disease. So they have a lot of funds, I'm very sure, but they just refuse to pay. So I felt like if I went for it, it would be an endless cycle of pain and torture. So with my gut, it told me like not to do it. Okay, so after that it went, then there was the second interview of the school, okay, and then for the school, it was really simple. They were like, how long have you taught? And I'm like, oh, like 4 to 5 years. Can you handle a class? I'm like, yes. And then they were like, oh, so what's the pay that you're looking out for? Because it's a range, right? So I gave an in-between number. Then they said they'll get back to me. So it was really short and nothing much about like, because I had other interviews before about teaching, they'll be like, oh, can you teach like 10 minutes and then we can assess your ability? No, there was nothing of that such. So the next day, right, they gave me an offer. It was like at 30 per hour. And I was like, to be honest, 30 is a lot better than the market rate outside, right? But I was like, no, like because I'm teaching science, so and I have a science degree, I should be paid higher. So I asked for 35 and they took it. Then I was like, yay, okay. So I had to wait for them to give me a schedule. They asked me if I want to teach science, okay? And then they said, why don't you teach STEM as well? Because there's this science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It's a very simple thing. It's very, very much like science, but non-examinable. I was like, okay, sure, whatever, as long as I get more slots, right? Because the school starts at 8:30, no, the school starts at 9:15 and ends at 3:30. So I think that this really fits my timetable and I can really teach and earn additional income to supplement whatever I needed. So that was really the perfect choice. And then there were many red flags about the school. Okay, but let's talk about the first. Okay, so I just briefly talk about it. So for the orientation, right, it was on countdown, like 31st of December, and it lasted from 9 to 6 p.m. Kind of sucks, right? I mean, like, which school would do that? Like, that's so weird. Like, we don't have our own personal time. It's okay. Then through that orientation, I've learned a lot of things, that they do not provide a laptop. They do not provide a dongle, because they use very old, like, they don't really use HDMI cables. They use like the older one, like, I can't remember the name right now, but your old PlayStation, you need to use that one. Like, oh damn, I forgot the name. It's not HDMI, what is it called? Like, basically, you need a converter to convert it to HDMI, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't have that because I mean most places use HDMI, right? So they don't have that. VGA, yeah, VGA, yes, VGA. So yeah, like, at what age are we and we're still using VGA, right? Okay, it's okay. So I invested in myself. Okay, I got a little laptop. Okay, to start my schooling profession. Okay. At first, I wanted something really cheap, so I just bought something off Carousel, which is not really the best place to buy a laptop. It was like about $100. Okay, it was like really really light, almost like half a kg, and from it was made in like Holland or something or France. It was really weird, like, and the charging port, right, was like a PlayStation plug charging port. So it's very different from a usual laptop. So I used that. Okay, so understand that when I got the job, right, it was in COVID period. So I was very happy because I thought that, oh, okay, that's great. That means like I don't really need to meet the students because during COVID we cannot meet them face to face, right? So to my horror, we are gonna do online classes. And then online classes is through Zoom. So they have a company Zoom, and then we will use it, and then we will conduct the lessons there. So sometimes certain students, they opt to come to class instead, and then we have to teach them in class instead. So we have to handle both the online and the offline at the same time. That was such a hassle, and some understand that I have this low quality $150 laptop that was like a paper plane, I think, trying to carry on passengers. It was so funny. So there were many times where it took so long for my computer to load, like a good 5 minutes, and then so I need to prepare way beforehand before I start my lesson. Okay, so anyways, talking about the schedule, I have received my schedule. So I opened all my slots, like from 8:30 to 3:30. So just so to maximize the lessons I would have gotten. But unfortunately, I've only gotten like 7 hours a week, and that was like 1 hour a day, or sometimes 2 hours a day at max. So it was really really little. And I was like, 7 classes, so sorry, I think 10 hours a week. So that was really little, and I was like pretty upset. Okay, no, I think 7 hours a week. I started off with 7 hours a week, sorry. So I started off with like one lesson a day, or maximum 2 lessons a day. So after looking at the schedule, I was a bit bummed, but I mean, money is money, right? So if you calculate 7 hours, then that will be like about 200-ish, and then 1 month will be like close to 1,000-ish, and after deducting the government, blah blah blah, I'll have an additional like 800 or so. So to me, at that point of time, I was like, I mean, since I don't make anything in the morning as well, so I think that amount is justifiable, and it's a good resume for me. Yeah, so I was juggling with the online and offline, and so the school that I taught, they have both primary and secondary. So I had mainly primary first because they just gave me primary, and when I looked at my schedule, right, I realized that all of them were STEM, like STEM. So at first I was kind of annoyed with it because like I wanted to teach science because I learned chemistry and bio, right? So I think that is a very good transferable thing. Like I want to mark papers and stuff. And then I was like a bit unhappy because remember my orientation at 9 to 6, right? Do you know when is the timing for STEM? It's from 5 to 6 p.m. So I have to stay all the way. So I came in the morning. So after you're done with your briefing, you can go for your subjects. But STEM was the last. I have to wait all the way to 5 p.m. because that was my only subject. So which was quite lame, to be honest. So I was like, okay, whatever. Nonetheless, I still stayed, and then it was not much introduction. So it was just this pretty, I don't know, nonchalant guy just telling us, you understand in time to come. Just log in. So we asked things like, how do we mark attendance? How do we clock in? How do we like sign off our lesson plan, stuff like that? Do we have to follow the lesson plan and stuff like that? Or how do we log in into our teaching materials? So all these were covered. Yeah, and I asked as much questions as I could. So yeah, so come the first lesson, which is the New Year, after the week after New Year. So wow, my first lesson was a primary 1 class, which had about 20 people. So I because it was just icebreakers, right? So we just did simple games like, getting to know each other, and they're primary 1. So immediately when I arrived, so they were super noisy, or everyone was still wearing masks. And then I think one of the girls cried, and I was like, oh my god, we are getting straight into it. Like, okay, but you are primary 1 kid, right? So I totally understand. I'm like, okay, don't worry. I talked to her. I'm like, I understand that you're scared. It's the first day of school, but it's everyone's first day of school as well. Okay, so don't worry so much. Just try and enjoy and ask any questions. And if you need help, I'm here. All right. And then she nodded, and then she went back to her seat. Then we tried to like play little games, and then that was that. So I had a total of like about 5 to 6 classes, like one primary 1, one primary 3, one primary 4, about 2 primary 5s. Yeah, that was it. About there. Did I count everyone correctly? Yeah, I think more or less about 5 classes. Yes. So to be honest, I feel like comparing the lower primary, which is from primary 1 to primary 3, versus the upper primary 4 to primary 5, I think that the lower primary, they are very forgetful. So when you like educate them, or when you like lecture them, they'll be quiet for a while. But then after that, they'll start their own pattern and start screaming and rolling around and stuff like that. So it's like really draining. For the upper primaries, they are a little bit more cautious, a bit more like wary of how you judge them, because it's the age of like understanding yourself. So sometimes they don't do things that are a bit too like cringy, or they feel that it's too showy. So to a certain extent, they can be controlled a lot better. But then again, it depends on the classes. Certain classes, I don't really have to shout that much for the upper primary, but for the lower primary, I think I'm constantly shouting, and it's like quite taxing on my voice. As in, if you look at me, right, I don't really like shout. I'm a pretty mellow person, but I tell you, my reputation in school is a very fierce teacher. And if you are my student, I'm so sorry. Like, I have to put on this front that I'm like so fierce and like blah blah blah. But I'm mainly sarcastic, I would say. And I feel like my students, they kind of like my sarcasm, because they I don't know, maybe they think I'm someone with humor, very funny. Yeah, I will like that's why I tell my students I'm a gentle roaster. That means I'll roast you, but gently. Like, maybe I can't remember off the hand what I've mentioned, but maybe certain like times when the students were talking a lot and then they were talking back, I'm like, but this is my lesson, you gotta listen to me. I can't remember. I cannot remember the details specifically, but basically, yeah. Okay, whatever. Let's just move on. Okay. Then anyways, so because for a part timer, right, I was paid hourly, right? So there were times where I had to relieve other people's classes. So they would tell me on the day itself, like, hey, can you like relieve this class? And I felt like, oh, okay, that's great, because I'm already there. It's kind of far away from my place, to be honest. So I had to travel a lot longer. And then to travel for like one 9 a.m. class is damn stupid. And then I'll end at 10 a.m. because it's just 1 hour. So whenever they give me relief, I was very happy, because one, I will get paid, and two, it's more worthwhile to be there, and I can meet other students as well that is not my class. So I was quite, I think to a certain extent, famous for relieving a lot of classes, because I pretty much accepted most relief classes, unless I really had something. Other than that, like, it was okay. So, but then again, when it comes to relief classes, so this is how a relief class will look like. Like you have to, the teacher will have prepared some relief materials. You just gotta give it to them and make sure that they finish it. Sometimes they need to hand up the assignment, or sometimes they can just bring it home. Most of the times, like teacher give like crossword puzzles, and very simple like drawing or like just some worksheet of their like workbook or something. So that would be the typical relief material. Yeah. So I think I didn't really fall sick or whatever until there was one point where I remember in June, right? Because back then I had filmed MTV Asia. There was this particular episode where they asked me to be a judge for a makeup episode, right? And that clashed with a lesson, and I was so scared because like I've never like not attended like lesson before, and I don't know how to do the relief thing, and I'm just a part-timer, right? So unfortunately I really had a lesson that day, and then yeah, I had to take MC, which is a medical certificate. So go to the doctor and then come up with something and then prepare relief material. So I think I just did something really lame, like crossword puzzle of the topic that we were supposed to talk about. So that was that. Yeah. So understand that I'm teaching STEM, and as I look at the slides, there are certain slides that is actually related to their science, and but sometimes they go a bit in depth where they will talk about more keywords that they have not seen before. So my students, some of them get really restless very easily. So I came up with a system, like I made everyone buy a book just for STEM, okay? And then whenever we do slides, I will make them copy keywords, and then at the end of the day, I'll test them according to the keywords that was written down and copied in their books, okay? And whoever gets, I'll split them into groups, and whichever group gets the most points will like win class dojo points. So they use this class dojo system. I'm not so sure if the rest of y'all know. So yeah, there's this class dojo points, and they are very very competitive about it. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Actually, there's another P6 class that I taught as well. I've forgotten. So there's actually 6 classes. 1 P1, 1 P3, 1 P4, 2 P5, and 1 P6. Yeah. So the P6 class, right, I remember they were very rowdy about it, and they were very competitive, and to the point that sometimes when they lose the game, they will like cry. Sometimes I'm a bit of an asshole, okay, to be honest. I make the game quite intense. Like for example, I'll make 2 of the groups, right? So each person sends a representative to the whiteboard and to either fill in the blanks of what I've got to say, which is related to the teaching material, or we do a spelling like of the word that I'm about to say. So this gives them a lot of pressure because they're writing in front of everyone, and they gotta compete the person and spell it right and correctly. So that gives them a lot of additional pressure. But I think that the students really enjoyed it because I can see that some of the students look forward to my lesson, although it is a non-examinable lesson, they still enjoyed it. Maybe because it's non-examinable, there's lesser stress, right? So they really liked it a lot, and that felt nice because they do not know this is my first time teaching a class per se, in a class setting. So I feel that as a teacher and as a student, like I can understand how boring lessons can be. So I just try to inject like different ways of method of teaching, which I think that it will be fun, or which I have felt that they were fun. So I created new games as well, so to make them more encouraged to like be more interactive with the class. So I named a few. Okay, so I named one favorite game that I'll do is called Spelling Bee. Okay, but then it could be alphabet spelling bee or normal spelling bee. So normal spelling bee, I will do like maybe I will ask them to fill in the blanks, or like let's say name me color of the rainbow. So you just need to write like red, blue, green, yellow, but whoever writes the fastest. So this is example of the spelling. Oh, that's a question, sorry. So spelling bee will be like, okay, that's how you chloroplast, so you spell chloroplast if the topic that week was like plants or something, you know. So it's related to the book or whatever we have gone through. So alphabet spelling bee is slightly different. Alphabet spelling bee is, I'll give you an alphabet, but you need to write a word that is scientific. Okay, so whenever I ask for P or V, you know, the P5 and P6 kids, you know what would they write? The P and the V, you know, of the sexual reproductive system. That's what they always write. So sometimes I like restrict the minimum word count is like 6 or 7, you know, so that it becomes more difficult. But you can write anything from like colors to planets to living things. Yeah, so I think that anything scientific, this to inspire them as well, right? So yeah, these are the spelling bee. Also, I also have certain question games where I just come up with question non-stop and ask them to fill in the blanks, like just as I've mentioned, like color of the rainbow, or like maybe the process from solid to liquid, what is that process? Then they gotta spell it. So this is example of questions that I can come up with. And then the last thing that came out was, because I think that Among Us was quite popular within them. So I remember when I was younger, I had this game whereby, like, you know, 3 people get the same word, 1 person a different word, and then they have to guess. So other people have to guess who is the odd one out. So sometimes I'll put words like ants, then bee, you know. So for the people that gotten the words right, they need to write a little scientific description of what they have gotten. Like they say, oh, it is an insect, or it has feelers, or you can find it on the grass. Okay, stuff like that. So the other participants in their groups, they gotta guess who is the odd one out, and if they got it right, then they'll get a point. So we'll see who has the most point at the end of the day. So this game, like they will encourage them to think more, to write vague but correct, accurate scientific description of their word. Because if they're too specific, like for the bee, they say collect honey, then everyone will know, oh, that person probably is wrong, because yeah, it's too specific, right? So I have many variations of such games, and I think that most of my students enjoyed it. But for the primary ones, I can't do this because they are like, they cannot understand, because it's a bit too hard for them to understand. So I only do this kind of games from like primary 3 onwards, like 3, 4, 5, 6. I think they can, and they have the ability to do so, although some of them, sometimes they are still very blur. They write out the entire word that they have, which is not correct. So I'm like, yeah. So it took a little bit of calibration, but they understood my games at the end of the day. So I think that was great, because I felt like I make a very fun environment. I hope, like, if my students are listening to this, let me know how was the lessons. Okay, yeah, but from time to time, of course, there will be like disciplinary issues. You know, sometimes when students, they don't do well, they like boo each other, or they might like cause some nasty things, and I think that's when I have to stop the entire session and speak to them. Like, I don't encourage bullying, I don't encourage like name calling, because your parents gave you a name for a reason. Like, don't call them otherwise, regardless of whatever. And you must understand that I only see them once a week. For other lessons, right, I mean, like for English, math, science, or their mother tongue, they'll see them a few times a week, but I only see them once a week, you know. And sometimes when there are holidays, obviously I don't come to the lesson, right? Then I will see, ooh, that was a very loud thunder. Okay, so I will see some of their reaction, right? They'll be like, oh, that means we won't have Mr. Chua's lesson, because my surname is Chua. So I will feel like sometimes like, yay, because I don't need to come to school, but like, oh, like, you actually want to you know, you actually want to have my lesson. So that's really nice. And then yeah, so I'm a bit lost right now because of the thunder. Okay, wait. So yeah, so with that, for the part-time thing, and sometimes, because I understand that I have to relieve certain classes, right? And I relieve the classes, like let's say English or math class, of the classes that I am teaching. And when I see their faces light up, like, it really just like, it brings joy to me, you know, because that means that they really like you, right? Because sometimes you can see if other relief teacher teaches them, they're like sian, like the face. It's like the kids cannot lie. If they like you, they like you. If they don't like you, it's all in the face. So I guess I can safely say that I'm pretty well liked by the students, okay, because I don't give them exams. So actually on hindsight, it's a good thing because I don't need to come up with like exam papers. I don't need to come up with like questions. It's a lot easier for my life, and I don't need to mark, I don't really need to do anything. So STEM was awesome to me, and I felt like teaching in that school, although there were a lot of like red flags, I still continued. And then I finished the first year, and then I was like, maybe it's time to move on to a more permanent role, because they had this scheme where it's like a permanent part-time, whereby because the school normally ends at 4:30, so if you do permanent part-time, you end around 3:30. So I was like, hey, I mean, if I'm free from 9:15 to 3:30, why not just do this, right? And I get paid so much more. And then I was scooping around for like the pay, and I realized that they don't really pay consistently. Like they really quote people at different rates, sometimes a little bit weirdly. So at the end of the day, I got a range from like 2,500 to 3,000. So which was still like considerably higher than the research job that offered me, remember? So and it ends at 3:30, that means I can still teach other people as per normal. So I picked that up. But with that, because I wanted to up my game, so I wanted to like teach upper secondary chemistry, because I feel that I can do that, and they needed chemistry teachers. So I applied for that role and I gotten it. So it was a kind of like a emotional thing where like, oh wow, I'm like finally becoming a teacher. Yeah, and then I realized that I have a form class. So it was a secondary 3 class. So at Sec 3 level, there were a lot more Chinese nationals, and then I think I was in 90% Chinese. Whereas for the lower primary, there were very much lesser Chinese nationals. So it was a totally different ball game. Plus, I need to talk to 15-year-olds compared to like 7-8-year-olds. I have to use totally different tones, and I realized that for my class, my Sec 3 form class, they were very honestly a bit spoiled. Like I would say that maybe more than half of them are really not interested in studying. Plus, honestly, it's quite bad for them because they don't know English well, but they just propel them to a secondary 3 class. Obviously, they cannot read the question, right? They won't even know what is happening. So I'm quite proficient in Chinese, Mandarin. So for my chemistry class, I can like at the first few months, I think the first 2 months, I translated all my PowerPoint slides into Chinese so that they can understand. But then I felt it was too much work, so I stopped doing that after that. I think that the students can appreciate, because to be honest, I was one of the few Chinese speaking secondary school teachers as well. So they were kind of happier that they can understand what I'm saying, because obviously the main mode is still English when I teach, but I will supplement it with Chinese words. But it was very tough for me. I mean, like I don't study like Chinese words of like neutrons, protons, electrons, right? I have to learn like 电子, 质子, and 中子, so and stuff like that. Certain things is very hard to like translate to Chinese, like let's say like fractional distillation, like how do you do that, right? So I had to many times I had to like Google Translate and work on the go, but I felt like maybe it was a chance for me to practice on my Chinese as well, because I don't really use it that much, but I'm still proficient and okay in speaking Mandarin. So I hope that they not enjoy, but I hope that they appreciate the fact that I can do that, because I can bridge their learning a little bit better. So at secondary 3 level and actually from primary level, there because this is an international school, so from time to time the good students they will take AEIS, which is like a primary school entrance or secondary school entrance exam, and most of my good students will leave. And when that happens, it's kind of sad. It's like a very bittersweet feeling. Like you're gonna go to a local school, which is gonna be good for you, definitely, because the school sucks. Okay, and then yeah, but then it's very sad for them to leave. So for my form class, there was this very smart girl. She gotten I think almost full marks for everything that I do, at close to full marks. And when she left, I felt, oh, that's like, I guess it's my pleasure and my honor to teach you, because I think that you do so well in your school, and then I really wish you all the best. So the same for a few like primary school students. I think there was one very particular case where it was very sad, because the student told me that like they're going back to India, and they do not have the money to continue studying in the school, so they gotta go back to India. And I was like really sad, because she was a very bright student. She was only like primary 1 or 2, I can't remember. So yeah, that was very bittersweet feeling. Yeah, but it also means that I'm trying and I'm growing a bond with my students, which can be kind of dangerous. Okay, so let's start to talk about a little bit of like the dark side, right? Which is, I don't know if you guys know. I mean, obviously we do like relief classes, right? So the first year I was a part-timer. Relieving is great, I get money, but the second year when I get converted, it was not great. It will eat into my daily schedule, and sometimes they pack it so much that I don't have time for lunch, and it becomes an issue. And when I try to reject them, they start to think that I'm a rebellious person, and they start to kind and find problems with me. So as much as possible, I try to accept it, but sometimes when things go out of hand, I gotta reject it. So there was one time, right, I had to deal with some personal issues. Like there was a very expensive delivery at home. My first lesson was at like 12, right? They wanted me to do a relief lesson at about 10 a.m., which was like almost the second lesson. I mean, which was like after I read school for not so long, I got to go. And then I rejected them, saying like, oh, I have a chemistry experiment next week, and the next day, and then I need to like check it out a bit. So to be honest, I did just pop by the lab for a short while, but I already prepared it the day before. Then I went out, okay? So as I went home and collected my parcel, and when I came back, right, when I was at home, immediately the principal called, and then he was like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at home. And he like, the staffs are looking for you, so come back to the office and we'll talk. And at that moment I was like, oh shit, am I in trouble? Because I dodged. And like to a certain extent it felt like, wow, are they like eyeing on me to the point that they want to catch me and stuff? And then I was like, what the fuck? And then when I went back, I talked to the admin. I was like, so what's the issue here? He said, did you go to the lab? I'm like, yeah. Then they're like, for how long? I was like, a short while. Then they say, did you not do the relief lesson on purpose? I'm like, no, I just needed to go back to collect something. They're like, do you know that if you leave the school during lesson hours, you're supposed to tell the staff? I'm like, sometimes certain teachers, like in between lessons, they just go out to buy lunch, they go out to buy drinks. They don't do that, but it's because of a relief class, they want to be so anal and particular about it. And I was kind of pissed off like that. I was like, I don't know, so thanks for letting me know. Yeah, and then I left, and I'm like, so do you want to punish me or something? And then they just rolled their eyes and moved on. And then for that, I have gotten a warning letter. Okay, a teacher with a warning letter. That's so funny. And then at the same time, when I gotten my warning letter, I was somehow chosen as the primary school's discipline master because they lack people. And I was like, I'm not setting a very good example, am I? and at the same time, I couldn't reject the role because I had a very good like bunch of friends there, and they really needed help. It so happened that I teach like more of primary 5 and 6 as well, so they appointed me as the like, you know, primary 6 discipline master head with colored hair. Yeah, super funny. Yeah, so I still did it nonetheless. And being a discipline master is hard, to be honest. So like as a discipline master, I teach my students as usual, but I had to deal with discipline cases, and it's so much paperwork. Like, let's just talk about one of the cases. Okay, so one of the case was whereby there was this boy. He's been constantly harassing the girls, and then he said really inappropriate stuff. Okay, like for example, like he wanna f the boy's older sister. Okay, to the point. It was such a big case, so I mean, because I had class dojo, so I like you know, talk to the parents as well, like saying that, oh, it's kind of inappropriate and blah blah blah. And sometimes certain parents, right, they are very delusional, because the parent actually replied me saying that, oh, he's so young, he doesn't understand the meaning of like fuck. I rolled my eyes and I'm like, I teach him STEM, which science, and he's very excited during sexual reproduction classes, so I'm very sure he knows the meaning. And then they were like very quiet. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, even as a teacher, right, I'm still very sassy, and I don't know, and I don't really care, because if you don't get my point, don't waste my time. Like, I'm just telling you something, and if you don't understand, then that's your problem. So I had a few cases. I don't think I can say everything today. So just briefly understand that every time we have to have a case, I need to like document, I have to interview everyone. I felt like I was CSI or something, you know. It was so tiring, and yeah, it just drained me a lot. Okay, so I'm just gonna pass through and talk about why I left the school. Firstly, the workload was becoming worse, okay, and then secondly, the major red flag was that okay, besides the school being old, run down, we have to share toilets with the kids, we don't have a pantry, no laptop. Okay, I think the biggest issue was that I feel like my safety was compromised in the school, whereby one of my form class students, because he's a very lazy student, and then he sleeps in class a lot. So I put him at the back, it's not good. I put him at the front, he sleeps, and everyone follows him. And then I confiscated his phone a few times. I think that was the third time, and he's always late. He tells me like he already set 3 alarms with his iPhone and he still cannot wake up. And then I'm like, honestly, that's not my problem, right? And the thing is, he's already 18 years old and he's pretty tall and big size, a little bit round, and like probably my height, 1.8-ish. And there are many times where I see him like skipping class, like hiding in the library. I've caught him multiple times. I've caught him eating like the braised pork rice outside during lesson. So there were many things that I've caught him doing. I give him a lot of warning letter, and I asked like a counselor, like, so how many warning letters and something will happen? You know, they say, oh, so the maximum you can give is like 3, and so when you give the third one, then it's expulsion. So during that day when I I already told him about the phone, like let's say the phone, I caught him with a phone was on Monday. I said, if I catch you one more time, I gotta give you a warning letter. And on Tuesday, the next day, he did it. So I obviously have to issue him a warning letter, right? So I gave him, and that was his third one. So that means that there needs to be an expulsion. So we talked about it. Okay, so that day, suddenly the Chinese representative brought me and him to a room, and we talked about it, because I said, this is your third warning letter, and I already warned you many times, like, to not skip class, to not sleep in class, to not use your phone, and then this is your third. And I say, so what thoughts do you have? And in his reply in Chinese, it's like, nothing. Whatever. So it was so whatever. And I'm like, then why am I keeping you then? Like, you are like giving and setting a bad example to the class, so why do I need to keep you? He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Then he said, no, I cannot promise that I won't do it again. Then I'm like, huh? Like, if you want to apologize, at least pretend that you won't do it again. And he said, yeah, I cannot promise I can't do it again because I might do it again. I was so confused, like. And then at that point of time, I'm thinking, like, for the better of the students, he got to go, right? And it, as in by the school's law, the third warning letter, he got to go. And then the Chinese representative asked me, so let's just keep him. I said, no, this is the third letter, you got to go. And then he was very angry. He slammed the table. He stood up and he put his fists in my face. I said, if you dare, you punch me, I'll call the police. You are 18, you go to jail. And you know what the Chinese representative did? All she did is just, let's don't do this, let's not do this, let's not do this. I really rolled my eyes at, like, you are still consoling, pacifying the student in this situation where my safety is being threatened, really? And then she ended off by saying, it's okay, we'll give the student a fourth chance. I'm like, what the fuck? So what was the first 3 letters about? And if that is the case, my warning letters have no threats to the other students because I've given out a few, right? And then she was like, as you understand, the school will always have a fourth chance. I was so mad. So the student left first, okay? And then she was talking to me. She was like, yeah, we always give a fourth chance. I say, I've never seen that happen before, so don't try and fool me. And I say, if this is gonna continue, I'm not gonna be in this place anymore. I won't be in this school anymore. And she's like, lower down your volume, because we were at the staff room, right, with a lot of like administrative people. I say, I don't care. If this is how you handle it, I will be gone. And that day itself, I calculated, because we need to end our service like 1 month before the semester ends. So that was the last day. I had to send my resignation letter, and I just ChatGPT my letter and then send it out, because I felt like, do I have to wait until a student punch me? Then I leave the school? Because the school will never protect me. The Chinese representative will never protect me. And the students, they can do whatever they want because there's no law, there's no discipline even in the secondary school region. So I felt like there are so many signs already, right? If I still don't take it, I must be really dumb. So with a leap of faith, I threw in my letter. Normally for many teachers, right, they would like ask the teacher to extend, or like, oh, maybe just blah blah blah. But because of the relief issue, because I was very vocal about things, they didn't really like me. They just say, okay, accepted. Your last day will be on this date. Please return this. I was like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. And then because I still have a resentment, okay, I kept my eye on that boy, okay. So it so happened the very next day, he brought poker cards and he was playing during the lesson, during the break. So the thing is, we cannot play poker cards because it's like considered as gambling, right? So I called him again, and then this time I asked, okay, I said, to be fair, this is not abiding the school. And he said, oh no, he was just doing a magic trick to his friends. I'm like, you can always do that after school. You don't need to do that in class. You don't need to do that during your recess. Or I can't remember if it was during recess or it was during a lesson, but I think it was during a lesson that made it more serious, okay? And then doing it, I don't know, that's so stupid, right? Why would we do that in class and in school? So that was his 4th time. And then this time around, after catching him, I asked all the subject teachers whether we should kick him out or not. But that's when a lot of teachers, they were suddenly being cowards. They were like, no lah, don't kick him lah. Some said, yes, go ahead. Some, not really. So it was a very even, like 50-50, right? So I was like, damn, I need one more vote. Who can I get it from? And then I realized, okay, let me just go to the discipline head, okay, from the primary department, because the he was present for some of the cases when I talked with the guy, and then because I needed a witness, so he knew, and he was my very good friend. So I just asked him honestly. I said, we have 3 in favor, 3 not in favor. I'm very stuck right now. So I asked him, like, if, and you have already witnessed, right, and you are the head of the discipline for the primary side, so what is your opinion? He said obviously is to expel. So with that, I have my final vote. So I sent it to the Chinese representative to make a decision, and then only after that they decide to expel him. But there comes the thing, like, because he's already expelled, right? So most of my teacher friends, they were like, so why are you still leaving? You know, I said, to be honest, it's not about the expulsion, it's about how the representative will not protect me, and they would protect the students and have the students' interests because they are paying and because they are customers. So I'm not a customer, I'm a provider. I will not be put, and my safety is not their priority. So I've learned that the hard way, and I think it was the right decision to leave, because as I was about to leave, they started docking our pay based on how late you arrive. So like every 5 minutes later, thereafter, they will deduct per minute, prorated. And I think that's really disgusting. Like, I don't know, this is what time and age. So there was once I thought, like, okay, I reached like 8 minutes later, I'll replenish the 8 minutes later, I clock out 8 minutes later. No, I don't get paid extra if I clock out late, but I get deducted if I come in late. So that was something that I was like, this is a major red flag. I got to go, and luckily I left in the right time. So, and because of this, I have met another teacher that like introduced me like a tuition center where I'm making like slides and notes. So from time to time, you'll see me posting like slides and notes on Instagram because I'm making them for a tuition center. So there'll be the learning materials. So I think that's the pay is comparable as well, and I can work from home, which is what I've always dreamed about. So I think that was an amazing arrangement. But then again, if I haven't taught in the school, I wouldn't have this job. So at the end of the day, I think I still gain something out of this. So yes, that is like wow, a very hefty amount. But trust me, there's so many things. I cannot squeeze 2 years of experience. I think I worked for about 1 year and about 10 months. I cannot squeeze all my experience in this like 1 hour session. But there's something that I realized, as a teacher, I sit down a lot even though I stand up most of the time, like the rest of the time I'm seated, and then I've gained so much weight. Okay, I was almost 100 kg. Although you guys cannot see, I'm still a little bit like overweight, to be honest. With the BMI, I know my face doesn't look like it, but my body, I'm very heavy. So in the next episode, I'm gonna talk about how I deal with weight, what kind of extreme measures I'm doing, what kind of certain ways that I'm doing to try to reduce my weight, and then maybe certain fat shaming experience I had when I was younger. Very much weight issue related in my next episode, in episode 9. So thank you so much for watching, my fellow Shadow Cats. Thank you for accompanying through these 8 episodes. There will be the 9th episode, the second last episode before the season ends. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and hope you guys learned something out of this and the dark side of teaching. And yeah, that will be all, and I hope to see you guys next episode. Bye.